Animals Up Close with Bertie Gregory, new series on Disney Plus. Bertie joins us now with a preview. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much for having me. Good to chat with you.
Bertie, you're in the hot, you're in the cold, you're in the mountains, you're in the water. How did you pick the 6 locations and the animals that we're going to see?
So I think really important to us was that they were an incredible piece of animal behavior, but we also focused on individual animal families. And some of them I had a past history with. In our Patagonia Puma episode, we went back to try and find one particular puma. She's called Pataka, and I met her when she was a cub 4 years ago. 4 years on, we managed to find her to film this episode. We spent 51 days trying to follow her. And yeah, she took us on a physical and emotional roller coaster as she battled with males to defend her cubs and all sorts.
Well, let's talk a little bit about each episode because in the beginning you mentioned how you're there. You just mentioned 51 days. Sometimes you mentioned, how many weeks you're there. Was it pretty much at the beginning we were able to kind of capture and then continue to study, or was there ever a point where you're like 4 weeks in and you're like, somebody do something? We need to get this.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, as an example, in the case of the Central African Republic episode, we were filming forest elephants. So that's in the Congo. And forest elephants, unlike their savanna elephant cousins, which I think most people are more familiar with, the ones that live alongside lions in big, wide open plains, forest elephants, as their name suggests, live deep in the jungle. And so tracking them down is really hard. In particular, we were trying to find a tusker, which is a really big male who has tusks that reach all the way down to the ground. And they are incredibly elusive and very rare because they've been poached for their ivory. They're big targets because they've got these massive tusks. So they're very elusive. So we spent a month in the forest, and we actually had to live off the forest floor. We lived in a tree house that we rigged up 120 foot off the forest floor because the elephants are very shy of people. And so to avoid disturbing them, we had to get our scent off the ground. And yeah, we just kind of hung out in the tops of the trees and waited for these elephants to arrive. And yeah, well, animals don't read the script, right? It'd be great if you found them on day one, but that doesn't often happen, sadly.
And you just read, you're in the hot weather, you're in the forest, you're in a treehouse. But let's talk about the opposite. Taking almost a week to travel to Antarctica, looking for killer whales. I mean, that episode is just so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, to me, lots of people often ask me just how smart are wild animals. And these particular killer whales that we were looking for in Antarctica, they're called wave-washing killer whales. They are the best example of animal intelligence I've ever come across. So they've figured out that if they look for seals that are resting on ice floes, so chunks of frozen sea ice, once they find them, to any other killer whale, any other marine predator, that would be out of reach. The seal is out the water. But they've figured out that as a team, they can use their bodies and their whole family to get together to create a wave to wash the seals off the ice and into the water where they can then get them. And this behavior isn't instinctive. It's almost artistic. The way that every wave is tailor made to that particular seal and that particular piece of ice. And it's just spine tingling to think the amount of coordination that goes into that behavior. So yeah, an incredible thing to see.
And when you think about the size of that, I mean, this is not like a seal that's 10 pounds or 15 pounds. It's almost 1,000 pound seal that all these whales are trying to move around.
Yeah, and you think the size of the wave that you need to make to wash a seal that heavy off the ice. And what, as I said, what's amazing is that it's creative and adaptive because often they'll make a wave that doesn't quite wash the seal off, and they'll then line up from another angle because they're like, okay, well that maybe is a better angle of attack. And then they sometimes, if the ice is getting real small, instead of washing the seal off, they'll stick their nose underneath and they'll all lift it up from one side to slide the seal off. I mean, it's eerie how smart they are and how calculated and clinical they are when trying to find dinner.
This has been your passion since you were a little boy. Talk a little bit about maybe inspiring the next generation, especially all the young kids that are going to be watching this on Disney Plus to get into this field.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they come away having watched the series just feeling excited and inspired about the natural world and really important to me is that we set all of these amazing animals in a bigger kind of environmental context. It's no secret that we humans are not treating the planet very well, but there's enough doom and gloom in the news cycle. So as well as kind of showcasing the realities of our natural world, in every episode we celebrate a really big conservation success story where we meet the local people already doing amazing things to turn things around for nature. And yeah, we saw countless times around the world. I'm really hopeful. We saw countless times around the world that if you give nature the chance, it will come back, and that is a good thing for wildlife and a really good thing for people too.
And then final thing, how do you prepare to be in these locations? Because you're up in a tree house, you get, there's a situation in the ice in Antarctica, there's a couple other things that happen. There's no AAA, there's no 911. How do you mentally go into knowing that, some of these situations could arise?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts of my job is that, as well as working with really cool animals, I get to work with really cool people. So that's really the key. Is I am a small cog in a very large machine and a big team, and I get to work with the best people in their fields. Another quote that a well-known wildlife camera person told me is that any idiot can be uncomfortable. And so, yeah, if you're in really cold conditions or underwater or wherever, just having the right clothing is the key. Because yeah, there's no point suffering unnecessarily. Work smarter, not harder. So that would be my bit of advice for sure.
Wonderful. Bertie, thank you so much for your time today. Animals Up Close with Bertie Gregory on Disney Plus beginning on September 13th.